What's going on, gamers? So if you guys wanted to know why the Xbox servers were down earlier, we got some answers here coming from Scott Van Blit, if that's how you say it, Elliot or whatever. I don't know, it's an interesting name. But basically, Scott here is, if you guys did not know, he is the CTO at Xbox. And he explains in this long paragraph what happens, but it gets interesting because you will start to realize that the servers that Microsoft are using and the licensing service is literally outside of Xbox. So a problem can happen outside of Xbox and affect Xbox. Remember how I was telling you PlayStation servers are on Amazon, AWS servers? Yeah, well, it seems like when it comes to Xbox and licensing, since you don't own anything, if something happens to that licensed service outside of Xbox, you don't have access to anything. Oh yeah, let's get into this. Are we ready? Become a member, leave a tip down below, like, comment, subscribe. Let's go. Earlier today, he says, now keywords here, guys, we're going to read this very carefully. Earlier today, and I'll zoom in fully for you guys, many players begin experiencing issues with sign-ins. Just signing in, right? Enumerating their game libraries and playing games. As he says right here, you know, when the PlayStation servers went down, the funny thing is that Sony doesn't have that type of issue. You could still play offline. It's not going to have issues with your game libraries and playing games. But in the Xbox world, the way Microsoft has it set up, that can actually happen. So they actually have a better digital licenses set up in the PlayStation world than in Xbox, which is why you saw that category on major outage in that section, which is not good, and they need to do something about that. But I don't think there's much they can do about it, and we're going to find that out here. Going on, he says the team has worked hard throughout the day to fix the issue, and it was down for damn near 20 hours, a long time, like way longer than the PlayStation one. And this wasn't the first time. It went down 2 times, and we've restored service as of 2:30 p.m. PDT, depending on where he was at. I wouldn't say for everybody, but it was somewhere around there, like 4:30 or 5. And he says, nonetheless, this is an unacceptable situation and we must do better to support you. Now, one thing I can tell you about the Xbox world, they do a good job of communicating and they do a good job of talking a lot. But when it comes to improvement, no, they suck at that. Now, people say PlayStation and Nintendo don't say much. It's like they don't, but they still do a way better job. Whereas Microsoft talks you to death, but their improvements never happen. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I'm going to keep on talking to you and making these parasocial behavior patterns and relationships, but they don't really add up to anything impactful and growthful when it comes to actual results. And everybody has seen that over the past decade. It only got worse. So yeah, they talk a lot, but the actions don't match up. He says, over the coming weeks, you'll hear more from me about our services, our platform, and the work we're doing to make Xbox better. Yeah, okay, as if it's getting any better. And that starts with some transparency about this incident. Ever since the showcase, terrible stuff consistently 24/7. Then went to join Sony on pushing, you know, the digital only format. Like I said, when you tell me that, it's like when I see Xbox better words, I'm like, no, I don't believe any of that. I'm just not going to be naive. It's like, what is that supposed to mean? Yeah, what does that mean? Your hardware is abandoned. It's done. You're just whatever's left over publishing. But like he says, and the work we're doing to make Xbox, okay, whatever that means. And that starts with some transparency about this incident. So if you mean just communicating to people like you always do, because you just talk, sure. And this is what he says, this is what happened. Late last night, a licensing service, guys, you see this? A licensing service, not an ownership, because you don't own it. A licensing service that sits outside of Xbox. Keyword, did you just see that? Outside of Xbox, but which Xbox depends upon. You just learned something right now that you didn't know. These are a lot of things people just do not know. You know what I mean? You got it right there. A licensing service, guys, that is outside of the Xbox realm, but Xbox depends on it, began failing. That's why you lost your license to your games and you couldn't play them. Not because just the servers, but because of the licensing service went down. So what if that happens again? Same thing's going to happen. Even if Xbox Live is up, you can't get your games. This caused some sign-in scenarios to fail. Now you understand at least how it's happening. and it caused many scenarios that require an entitlement check to also fail. So because they couldn't get the check, you were not able to play those games. Your library became basically X, not the check mark, such as listing out your full library and launching games that you own. What you own? Oh yeah, you know what? Even if you had the physical disc on some of them, you couldn't even play them. That's what people were telling me in the comments too. They're like, oh man, I got physical disc for some of the stuff and I still couldn't get on. But like he was saying, games that you owned or games that you have a license for. Yeah, keyword. It also affected several of our publishing and store partners who depend on those same systems, which is why some of you saw issues in Pacific Games and not others. Yeah, that was affecting developers. That's a problem. Yeah, think about that. What we did, our on-call teams caught the first signals overnight. So this was going on all night, all the way up to here now. As I said, it was happening a long time. Through automated monitoring and declared a major incident. That's why they said major outage. Once we isolated the failing infrastructure, we shifted traffic onto the healthy parts of the system while the team continued to work towards a root cause. Service came back unevenly across regions, which is why some of you recovered hours before others. That's why that was going on. Let's see what he just said right there. Then he says, what's next? We're running a full post-incident review. I care less about the one-line root cause and more about the real questions. Why a failure in one service was able to take down this much. What they're telling you is that they don't know how to deal with this to stop it permanently too. You're being told this. It can happen again and it's going to be the same thing. They're just hoping they know how to deal with it faster. Why recovery, took as long as it did. And what we changed so a single point of failure can't ruin your night again. Something outside of Xbox. That means hardening the dependencies underneath sign-in and game launch. Improving how we detect and contain this class of failure. And being faster and clearer with you when something breaks. He's letting you know it's pretty much going to happen again. You see, he's not saying you'll never see this happen again. We're going to make sure this never happens again. That's not what he's telling you. You notice that? Then he says, thank you for your patience and for the reports that genuinely helped us narrow this down. We'll do better. Xbox support, this is what they're saying. Good news, the earlier Xbox issue should now be mitigated. You should once again be able to launch games, sign in, and complete purchases. Thanks for sticking with us through a long one. Yeah, because it was a long server outage down. Going down, Ice Storm says, why are the licenses for my Xbox content not on a system that Xbox controls? Scott says, it's an internal service at Microsoft that is shared across multiple products. Not some random system. Sorry that wasn't clear. We'll be better about future updates, right? You see that right there. He says, I figure it was another service inside of Microsoft. I just don't like that a core service elsewhere can have such an impact on Xbox. Scott says that's fair and we need to be durable to outages for systems on which we depend. That's the work ahead for us. Most modern systems have loads of dependencies. The best systems create durable solutions for when those dependencies fails. This is where we're improved. So the whole time, remember, this company has more money than anybody. I want you to think about that. That's the thing that I'm talking about, guys. Sony system is better. Nintendo system is better. You don't see nothing happen to Nintendo, do you? Yeah, nah, they're fine. And they ain't taking away your physical ownership, right? Going down, it says, this may sound insane, but game launch should be purely client side. Consider how secure Xboxes are and the fact that in the event consoles are compromised, people are going to find a way around it anyways. They always do. That's 100% correct. So yeah, if you thought this was client side, now you have your answers. It's not even Xbox related. So Angel says, so that was the reason why some people could install games they didn't own since the license system was failing. It's good to know. This guy says, I might be, pretty much angry I didn't game today, but mad respect for you telling us what happened and explaining. I mean, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you all gave us communication during the outage. Being more open and transparent is great. Sure, but this is not going to fix the problem, though. And just going down, we see what that essentially means. It can happen again, and you can do nothing to prevent it since it depends on another entity to function. That is bad. Pretty much, guys. So we pretty much have our answers here, don't we? And there's something that I want to say. So this gives you the idea of why people are so like strict about physical ownership and even digital ownership, right? Because when stuff like this happens, because you have a license and you're dealing with a license issues outside the Xbox world, it ain't even in your ball or your field. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, what can I do about that? The license stuff is even outside of the Xbox realm. They have to try to do something about it as well. And there's nothing you really can do about it, to be honest with you. So everything becomes null and void when that type of stuff happens. This is a worse situation compared to the PlayStation Network outage because you could still play. And a lot of people in the PlayStation world play single player games. You see what I mean? A lot of people in the Xbox world play online, and it requires online. Game Pass requires online. Digital requires online. So no matter what you do, if this happens, there's nothing you can do about it. And this is where people are like, hey man, I like my disc, right? And then there are some people saying that because of some of those games that kind of require Xbox Live, like Halo, for example, a single player game, they couldn't even play it because it requires you to sign into Xbox Live to play. It requires you to be online in a way. You see what I mean? These are the things where like you start to think about certain things like, okay, so hold on a second here. I can't even get on single player games because you have an issue non-gaming related. Man, this is the worst issue. This is never going to happen in the Nintendo world because that's not how it works in the Nintendo world. And you're designed to play offline Nintendo world because a lot of people could play in handheld and just go on the go and just be fine. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, power outages happen in your room. The Nintendo goes straight into the handheld mode if you have it docked and you can just keep on playing. You know what I mean? You don't have a power outage on the Nintendo Switch, right? No, Nintendo Switch 2, same thing, right? This is what we're saying, like both. If Xbox goes out, the console shuts off because there's no power. PlayStation, it goes off, then it has to boot into safe mode. On a Nintendo Switch, you go into handheld mode. And whatever battery is left, because if it's fully charged, obviously you'll be able to use that till things come back. And you can take that somewhere and just take the power cable and go somewhere else and be fine at some other place. You know what I mean? Where it's like PlayStation, you kind of need an online connection. You kind of need like a TV or something. You see what I mean? But in Nintendo world, that you don't ever have to worry about that. And you don't have to worry about losing progress or getting a save game getting corrupted or anything because it goes straight into handheld mode. The console is actually the device and not the dock. So you can't have a power outage that actually affects it. And you have physical ownership. You see that everybody loves Nintendo in that sense. But when it comes to in the Xbox and PlayStation world, in the past 5 days, we saw a lot. When the first Xbox service went down, and then when PlayStation went down, and then Xbox went down again today, which was actually the biggest one of the year. And people saw the vulnerability of their libraries. And it makes them actually worry now. All that stuff you were saying against PlayStation, I was trying to tell you. This is why you don't listen to just dumb Xbox soft farmers. They're stupid, a lot of them. Like, they're not ever showing you the true picture about things. Then when you see and watch AGN's videos, you get a transparency, you get clairvoyance, you get a clarity on things like, man, now I see what he's saying. You can't just be polarized and look from that point of view. It's never going to help you out because you're going to be in a situation one time and you're going to be like, man, I mean, I can't sit here and keep acting like blindly and toxically positive. There's something called toxic positivity. And it's a very bad thing in the Xbox world, but fake toxic positivity. When things are really bad, you try to cover it with positivity that shouldn't be there. Instead, you should be criticizing and making them want to fix things. What he came out is he made things open, clear, and transparent, and it's letting you know how they want to fix things because there is a problem. A lot of them have been coming out telling you that Xbox has been bad lately. Everything has actually failed. That's why I'm staying on this topic. And I tried to tell you, no matter what happens in the PlayStation world, it will happen worse in the Xbox world, sadly. Not that I would want that to happen, but it's just the way things have been going lately. So I want you guys to let me know what you actually think about this. Like I said, become a member for $3. Leave a tip down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Keep on gaming, no matter what platform you're on. And remember, hey, right as you thought like this disc stuff was kind of dying down, in the PlayStation world, now it's surfacing up in the Xbox world big time. Definitely after today, because you got your answers right here. Game libraries are tied to a licensing service that sits outside of Xbox, but which Xbox depends upon. And when that failed, there's nothing you can do about it. That is not good, guys. No. Later. Damn, man. Get it together, Microsoft.